Welcome to level 2 of Microsoft Excel. This is an introductory course, so we're going to look at some of the basics of Excel. We're going to be looking at formatting cells, changing column widths, and kind of manipulating data to make something useful out of it. So the first thing I want to look at is the final example. So when I look at this is what you're going to have when you're all done. This is what we're going to be creating. This is just a class list. You can use, this could be something you leave for your substitutes. It could be something that you just have in your folder. These are going to be kind of predetermined. This is what I have for us to use, but your class list can have any data that you find relevant or important. So now I'm going to go back and I'm going to look at the data we're going to be using to create that. The data we have is actually some that I pulled from Skyward. So when we pull from Skyward, we get a lot more data than we need. So when we look at this sheet, I obviously have a lot of data here, and I don't need all of that. So I'm going to show you either how to hide or delete columns as we go to, and then how to combine some columns to make it a little easier to read. So right now we are in the online version of Excel. Just like with all other Office 365 products, the online version is very functional. It can do 90% of the things you want to do, but there are some things it doesn't have that the desktop version will allow you to do. So this is the online version. I can tell because I'm in a browser. So I'm in an internet browser. Right now I'm in Chrome. And if I look, it looks a little different than it would if I were open up in Excel in the desktop version. So looking at this data, first of all, just so that you're aware, this is not real data. I did pull this list from Skyward. So for those of you who don't know, in Skyward, whenever you have either your class list or if you're browsing students, you have the option to right here to export to Excel, and that'll create an Excel workbook for you. So that's something that may come in handy for when you are creating class lists and doing different data pieces with Skyward information. This is fake data, so these are not real students. I downloaded the sheet and then changed all the information. So we know that when we're dealing with student data, it needs to remain private and confidential. So this is all fake, so don't worry about that with this one. But with yours, you definitely wouldn't want to post information or share information that's not appropriate to share with the public. So like I said, we'll be working in the desktop version of Excel. So you do have the option up here to open in the desktop app. So you could click that and have it open in Excel. Now this is just a quick Technology 101 lesson for you here. Right now mine isn't open, and you know that's okay. The one thing about technology is it's generally built very redundant, which means there are multiple ways to get the same thing done. So if that doesn't work for you, what you do is you just close that, and then right next to the assignment, if you just click those three dots and click open in Excel, that'll force open it into the desktop version for you. It's still the exact same version. We didn't change anything, but now we're dealing with the desktop version. All right, so now we have to look at starting to create the list that we wanted. The first thing I see here is that there's a lot of information that I don't need. So some of this stuff is coded, like the S stands for status, and I may not need that. So if I want to delete an entire column, all I have to do is click on that column or on that letter, and I'm going to show you real quick. If I just hit the backspace or delete button, all it does is clear the contents, but that cell still remains there. So what you actually have to do is right click on it and delete, and that'll remove the whole column. Now you also have the option, instead of deleting, if you just want to hide it, you can right click and hide, and that'll just remove it, but you can see it's still there. So I could still get back to it if I wanted to. I could still find it. All it does is shrink it down to 0. But we're actually gonna delete these because we won't need them again. So what I'm going to do is we're going to delete everything except for the name stuff we're going to keep the name, the grade, the birthday, and we're going to go ahead and delete everything up to the other ID. Now if you accidentally delete the wrong thing, all you have to do is click that undo button and it'll come back. We're going to get rid of all that right there, so right click, delete, and we're going to get rid of all this except for the phone number. So what we're going to be left with is the names, the grade, the birth date, the other ID, which is their student ID, and the primary phone number. So again, that's some important information. If you have a substitute coming in, that may be stuff that you want them to have access to right away. Alright, so now we have to start looking a little bit about formatting. Listing the names this way, if I were to go to print that, it may not look the best. So if I go to print preview, that may not look the best. So what we're going to do is that we're actually going to work on doing a formula here to combine all three of these. So the first step we'll have to do is hover over column D. You're going to right click and you're going to click insert. So what we just did is we inserted a brand new column that's blank. And then we're actually going to do that again to column D. We're going to right click and we're going to insert. So now I just inserted two new columns. I'll explain why I put two in there in a minute here. So we have to use a formula now to combine all three of these columns into one. So here's that formula. When you use a formula in Excel, you always work one row at a time and then you can apply it to multiple rows. So what we're going to do is in this box, all formulas start with an equal sign, so it has to be equal. Now what we want to do is combine this, this, and this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click in A2, and you're going to see A2 pops up in that formula bar. Now with that, that's the last name, so I want to combine that with, so I'm going to do an and sign. Now when I make my list, I want to have last name, comma, first name, middle name. To get that comma in there, we're going to do a quotation, comma, space, quotation. Then we're going to do and B2, and then and C2. So this is our formula. We have column, or we look at cell D2 should equal A2 and a comma and a space, and B2 and C2. So now all I gotta do is click enter, and if I expand that out, you will see that it combined all those into one. So that's just using that formula. Now we have to apply that formula to the rest of these items. So what I need to do is put my cursor in there, make sure it's selected. And if you look really closely, in the lower right hand corner of that green box, there's a little square there. So what you're going to do is make sure that that cursor looks like a little plus sign. You're going to double click. And it's going to autofill all of those. Now you can also take that and drag it if you wanted to. So you can drag that down to your last entry. And it's going to autofill that formula to apply to all of these cells over here. So we just filled all of those in with a couple clicks there. So now we'll get to the reason why we added two columns instead of one. When I click on these cells, you can see that the formula is still showing up as the value for that cell. So really this is still reading the formula, but it's just showing me what I wanted. Now what problem that could cause is if I go back here and I edit that, it's going to change my name over here. So what we have to do to get rid of the formula is we have to take this column we're going to right click and copy, and then in column E you're going to right click, and when we go to paste, we're going to do paste values. When I do paste values, it's going to take out that formula and just give me whatever was showing up in that column. So now that's in there as values, so you can see the difference. Now when I click in this column versus this one, this is the formula, this is the value that I actually want. So now that I have my value, I could go through here and I'm going to delete those. And none of these will change. They'll stay the same. Okay? Alright, so now we have to give this column a header. So this will be student names. And there we go. We just combined 3 cells or 3 columns into one using that formula. Alright, so now the next thing we have to do is start looking at some formatting things. So right now you can see that this is showing all of the text here. The reason that is because when we click on column A and we come up to this ribbon under our home tab, we see that it has wrap text on. So that means it's going to wrap the text, so it's going to stack on each other. Now that text will adjust if you just click on between A and B. You could drag it and you could adjust it to whatever you want it to be, whatever size you want it to be. Now here's another quick trick. If I take that wrap text off, you can see that they come, now they're right on top of each other. There's no wasted space, but it cuts off some of the names. So what we have to do is select that column. On the home tab again, we're going to come over to format and we're going to go auto fit column width. So now watch what happens to column A. It auto fits, so it fits everything in there that I want to have in there. So that's a way to make sure everything fits, that you can see everything that's in that cell without anything being cut off. Alright, so now as we look at our formatting a little more, I can see, do you see how that grade is above everything else? I think that's because there's a space there. So what I want to do is click on that and just click backspace, and that'll adjust that grade. So now everything's on the same level. Now what we can do here is we can take these, we can go ahead and center them, give our alignment, and I actually want to go ahead and center these as well. Just click it twice to adjust it. Perfect. Alright, so now we're starting to get a good looking list here that we can use again for our subs or for some different purposes if we need it. Alright, now I do want to bring up something right here. You guys see, it's very faint, there's a dotted line here. Okay, what this dotted line is showing us is where when I go to print it, that's going to be the cutoff for a page. So right now as it is, this is not going to fit all on one page. So when I go to my file, print preview, I can see that the phone number is missing. But with one click, we can go down to where it says no scaling, and we can go fit to one page. And there we go. Now our phone numbers are showing up. Okay, not quite done yet. We're going to do a little bit more editing here. So that print preview is a good way to see what's going to actually print when you're going to do these. There's also down the lower right hand corner, we have our normal view, but we also have our page layout. When I click on that page layout, I get a real clean view of what that's going to look like when it's printed. I can also add headers, and I can edit it from here as well. So I'm going to go ahead and edit this up from this page layout view just to make it look a little better. So the first thing I want to do is I'm going to go ahead and add a header in here. So you can go ahead and label it your class. Now because it's a title, I'm going to go ahead and bold it, make it a little bigger. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the spacing on these because they all seem very close together, and I might as well use the rest of the page. So what I'll do here is I'm going to select the cells that I want to adjust. So I'm just going to click and drag. Once I have those cells that I want to adjust selected, I'm going to go up to this format again under the cells part on the home tab, and I am going to actually adjust my row height manually. So right now it's giving me a row height of 0.18. So it's 0.18 that it's going to be using for our row height. So let's go ahead and adjust that. So if that's 0.18, let's try a 0.3. So that 0.3 brought me right to where I need to be. It filled up almost the entire page. So that was a good guess on that one. Alright, so that's how you adjust that row height. You just select the ones you want to change, and then it's just up on the cells format. You can change your row height to have it look however you want. Alright, so as I look at this now, I kind of have a good list going. There are some other formatting things, just like you could do in Word. You could take this top one and you could give it a shade if you wanted to. So you could shade it in. You can make it look a little better. So I'm going to go ahead and go to my print preview again to see how that looks. So I'm going to go File, Print. And here's my print preview. So there's a good looking list I can give to anyone. Now personally for me, if it's listed like this, that's not bad. That's very usable. You can read that. But what I like to do is I like to have the lines that are in these cells actually show up. So I'm going to go ahead and select my information again, all my cells that have data in them. And up here, where I have this little box, I'm going to click borders and I'm going to do all borders. So now when I go to my file print preview, I now have this all listed out. I have my lines that are easy to follow. So if I have a sub student here, they know to come get this student, they know the phone number if they need to reach out, they know the birth date or their other ID if they need those. There we go. So now we have a class list almost ready to rock. The very last thing I want to do is, because for organization purposes, we like to have all of our information usually organized in a certain way. So I'm going to alphabetize these students so that I know who is where. So what I want to do is up on the ribbon, I'm going to go to Data, I'm going to go to Sort. So when I clicked on Sort, it selected that data right away for me. So now the data I want to do, I do have headers, so I want to make sure that's checked because the headers are my student name, grade, birth date, other ID, phone number. I'm going to sort by student name. It's going to be the cell value and it's going to be A to Z. Click OK. And now my list is alphabetized by student name. So there is our final product. We have a class list that we can print out, we can use for our data folders, many other purposes. So now what we're going to do before we're done is we're actually going to save this. So because this is an Excel file, that's great. We're almost done. I want to show you real quick how to save this as a PDF. So we're going to go to File, and this is kind of a shortcut I'm going to show you to save a PDF. We're going to go to Print. And in our printer option, right now you may have your printer selected, but we have this option right down here to Microsoft Print to PDF. I'm going to click that. Now when I click Print, it's actually going to bring up a save folder. So now I can choose the folder I want to save that in. I can give it a title, so this will be my class list, and save that. So now I have that PDF of that class list. So if I go into my documents, I'll be able to find that class list. It'll either be my recent or it'll be right in my documents right there. So that's a quick way to save a PDF. Instead of doing save as PDF, you can just do print and print as PDF. All right, so now we have our work done. Now we have to submit it. So I'm going to go back to Teams. I'm going to click on Add Work. I'm going to upload from this device. Now I need to find that class list I just saved in my documents. Open. It's going to upload and click Done. So now my class list is in there. You can double check to make sure it matches things on here. You can double check the rubric. Your work, because you did it in here, is going to be saved, so I'll be able to see your Excel file and your final product. When everything is done and you are good, just click Turn In.